tutorial starts with a song, but it's only a few seconds long.
Computer animation. Computer animation. Computer animation.
Let's get started with animation. Hello friends, we're in Wikimedia Commons now. This is a file called at New York, USA 2017, picture 052. The photograph was taken by Mike Peel, who has a website here. It is CC by SA 4.0. That means when I name him, Mike did this photograph, I'm fine to use it. And down here we see the metadata. This is the German user interface. You probably see this in Chinese or in Arabic or in English. And down here you see the focal length, Brennweite in German. It's 18 millimeters. In the street you see almost nobody on the street here. There's somebody crossing the street back there. Now let's switch over to Maya. Here we have three men standing in the scene. They come from the Windows General Editor's content browser, from the people right here under modeling people. I chose this guy here, Sean is his name, and I just duplicated him 3 times. If I want one more of him, I just duplicate him and move him to the side, for example here, and a little bit back, so he sort of stands here. There is a difference between this chap here and this chap, and the difference is very subtle, but it's quite obvious. And now I show you what I did in order to make this person look more realistic. I introduced a plane here, and that plane is not reaching this chap here. So when I move it over here and deselect it, he looks planted on the ground. What a difference. Let me show you this again with the plane. I move it all the way out of the picture to the left. And now you see that they all look like they kind of hovering over the ground. Whereas, as I said, here they're all nicely placed on the street. Why is that? Because they have a light, and the light is an area light which I placed up here. And the focal length is important because I introduced a camera called Perspective 1, and the camera has a focal length of 17 in my case. I always try this out with the grid. You see the grid is here, and the grid is kind of adopting the perspective of the street here in this case. If I, for example, choose, well, say 19, you see that it's not aligned that well. It goes this way, whereas it should go this way. On this side it's slightly better, but it's still pointing to this direction. So I think 17 is just all right. It's a trial and error thing, really. How does this image come into the scene? That's very simple. In the perspective camera, that's the camera we're looking through. Let me deactivate the grid now. We have down here an environment, and in the environment you can actually create, and that's what I did, an image plane, and feed that image from Wikipedia, WikiCommons into the scene. It's only visible in your camera, really, in this in the proper way, but in the other windows you might be able to see it as well. For example, here I have the perspective window, where you see the whole truth of the scene. It doesn't look aligned at all here, but it makes sense when you're in the perspective view of a camera with a proper focal length. Always keep in mind we have a lighting situation in the photograph, so we have to kind of adjust to it, adopt to it. And I'm quite happy with this result, really. Finally, the plane has a material which you see here, and it's called AI Shadow Matte. It's a shadow matte shader. That means it doesn't render, but it renders the shadows, which is quite an amazing effect, which is very useful here. So without shadow and with shadow. With less light, they're getting dark now, then the shadow diminishes as well, and with much more light. It's too bright now, obviously, but they do have their shadow, which is the real beauty, which makes this computer-generated content integrate so nicely into the real scene. And with this, I'll leave you alone. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.